So, welcome to the Razor's Edge, and tonight we have Alan and Teresa from Cardiff, still Cardiff-based, even though half of you aren't in Cardiff anymore. Cardiff-based black metal band Agrona. How are you guys?
All good, all good. I was saying just then, warm is all hell. We caught the interview on possibly one of the warmest days of the year, so it's trying not to melt, but keeping well.
Yeah, I'm fine too. But as Alan said, it's just so warm. It's almost impossible to be still alive, you know.
It's Gotham friendly weather.
At least you're not playing in this weather.
Well,
we've done
it
that
might
before.
happen actually, you know.
Yeah,
we've done that before, and oh my word, we can
Yeah.
literally see the sweat dripping from the walls. No thanks.
But we're moving back towards you actually playing again, which must be quite a surreal experience after the last 18 months.
Absolutely. I just can't even imagine to be back on the stage, but it's so exciting, you know, and this is basically part of our life. So it just will be absolutely incredible experience to be back on stage.
Comes with its own fair share of nerves at the same time, because when you pick up an instrument, I know, okay, we've all been practicing at home individually, but when you pick up an instrument after 15, 16, 17 months of not being able to perform and kind of trying to get it all back together, it's a little hairy to start off with, but it's like riding a bike at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you been able to get together at all to do any practice, or is it all being kind of virtual? Because obviously, Teresa, you're not exactly close anymore, are you?
Well, I'm not exactly close, but we already had some practices, and I'm again coming to Cardiff very soon for entire weekend practice and stuff like that. So it's possible, actually, it's doable. And I know that guys was quite busy with practicing as well. So yeah, we're keeping busy.
Yeah, instrumentalists are basically doing twice a week.
Cool.
So we're getting plenty of practices in to make sure we're nice and tight by the time we get back on the stage. The last thing we wanted to do was kind of come back and then go, oh great, massive shows to play, and then just be god awful. So we're trying our best to avoid that.
I mean, the bottom line is that everyone's going to be so bloody glad that anyone is actually up on that stage making a noise that unless you're absolute car crash, no one's really going to mind, are they?
Well, there's a bit of a hope in there, but I actually think we should be pretty on form by the time we actually get back there. In all fairness, it's like Teresa said, we can only get Teresa down once every month or so at this point because of the distance. So as long as we're tight as a unit from the instrumentation side of things, I think Teresa's going to slot into the rest of it absolutely fine.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because obviously the lineup has changed quite a bit since 2016. Obviously, you've changed a couple of members, and Teresa, you're now full vocals as opposed to where you were 2 years ago with kind of shared vocals. How has that transition been?
Well, to be fair, because of the COVID and everything like that, I just basically went as a completely frontman or front woman on the stage just once. And I really enjoyed it because, you know, it just felt like that I can breathe. You know, it's just more space. You can just, you know, just express yourself properly, you know.
Yeah.
Just unleash the beast.
Indeed, the beast to be unleashed. That'll be brilliant. And I think there's a lot of people are really looking forward to seeing the new lineup, because this will be, was it first or second time you've played as a 5-piece?
So when we do Southwest Heavy Fest a week before Bloodstock, that'll be our second time as a 5-piece. We've only done one full show as a 5-piece, and that was Fuel back in February last year.
Yeah,
it was February, yeah, definitely.
But that show went really well, in all fairness, and we felt really good coming off the stage. We know that it was well received by the fans who were in front of us, so that's all you can really ask for. So we're feeling pretty optimistic about it.
So I didn't realise you had Heavy Fest, so that's the week before, is it? That's down in the southwest, yeah?
Yeah, Cobblestones, down in Bridgewater.
Yeah. Oh, so at least you get one show under your belt, so there's no excuse, really.
Yeah, except we can't exactly treat it like a practice either, because it's we're just down from the headliner, so It's still a 40-minute set that we're getting. That's gonna we've gonna really go hell for leather at. But I think we'll be using it almost as this is almost dress rehearsal.
Yeah. Brilliant. So let's go back to the history of Bloodstock for Agrona. Obviously, 2016 was the first appearance there as winners of Metal to the Masses. So, Alan, you were obviously involved in that quite heavily. What was the build-up like to the actual final of Metal to the Masses in Cardiff itself, and the nerves on that, knowing what was at stake?
Oh, take me back that. It was the year before really was like where it all kind of started, because we actually Metal to the Masses is our first set of shows ever. 2015 was when we actually played our first ever show, full stop. That was a heat with Incursion and Blind Divide, so both mainstays of South Wales metal scene. We played to the semi-final, and we got knocked out by the eventual winners. Fine, but we took that experience and moved on. Did a load of touring, got to the next year and thought, actually, we stand a good chance of winning this if we just throw the kitchen sink at it. So we had a lineup change through then at that point as well, because we had a different drummer at that point. Sam was on lead guitar when we started off. Yeah. Now he picked up the drums, and so we that all happened midway through the year. When it came to actually doing the heats and whatnot, we started off, we felt confident, we got to the semi-final and thought, okay, great, we've done as well as we did last year. That's a good start. Had a really good semi-final and kind of thought, oh crap, okay, we're in the final now. We've actually got a legitimate chance of actually making something happen here, and that's when the nerves started really kicking in. And there's another local band called La Satilia, who at that point were due to hit the final as well, and then I think about 2 weeks beforehand they pulled out because they got invited to play Hellfest, which I'm obviously very happy for them in two ways. Happy because they get to play Hellfest, great, that's wonderful for a South Wales band. Happy for us because it means that one of the bands that we kind of saw as our main competition also were no longer performing on the night. Yeah. So that kind of, it almost gives us a bit of a boost. I think looking back, we were nervous, but we also at the same time felt quietly confident, because we know we put in the legwork in on all facets of being a band, so not just performance, but the whole promotion and everything. We literally threw the kitchen sink at it. So I think at the end of the day, it did come down to a lot of hard work just across the board.
Yeah, sure. And then once you'd won, obviously you have that horrible gap between winning.
Yeah.
And then that kind of lull before you actually have to gear up again to start thinking about the event or the new blood stage. I know it happened certainly to Blind Divide and Fallen Temples 2 years ago, where they were kind of in this kind of limbo where they were waiting, and really what you wanted to do was follow it up 2 weeks later, didn't you?
Exactly. You prefer if you just get to play the new blood stage the next day, in all fairness. You're supposed to be feeling you're riding that high and you're thinking, okay, we're going to perform that well again.
Yeah.
From memory, I think we actually played more gigs. I think we played another 2 or 3 shows in between the Metal to Masses final and then Bloodstock, because it gave us an opportunity to kind of hit a couple of cities and say, well, actually now we're going to be performing at Bloodstock. Come and see us there. So we just carried on. In all fairness, we didn't really change the setup at all. It definitely got nervy before Bloodstock, and I think we would have benefited a lot more from, say, for example, speaking to previous finalists and working out specifically what they did. And I know that we had a different set of Metal to Masses promoters then, because it was some of our predecessors who were running it, and the same level of support wasn't quite there at that point. So we almost walked in blind. And when it came to doing PR things, as an example, we walked into the Bloodstock Festival, and we were, I think this is on the Thursday, just wandering around the media tent on the Thursday going, hi, does anyone want to interview us? We're playing. And that was literally, that was how prepared we were. We weren't massively prepared, but the one thing we did know we were going to do was going to turn up and wreck the stage on the Friday.
So on the day itself, obviously, what were because you played on the Friday, so obviously you'd gone up on the Thursday, I assume, or did you go up on the Friday? I can't remember.
We went up on the Thursday, so most of us at that point had been to the festival a fair few times. So turned up on the Thursday, had a chilled night rather than getting Welsh blotto, and then played the gig, and then
Welsh Black.
then Welsh Black.
Yeah. And what about the gig itself? Because am I right in thinking you were like head to head with Behemoth?
No, we had a wonderful.
Are you slotted between?
We slotted in between Venom and Behemoth, so we almost advertised it as, look, come and get your black metal fix. Just go watch Venom on the main stage, and then you've got a 35-minute gap whereby we are literally sat directly in between these two bands. You come and watch a bit of us, and then you can file out towards the end and go and get yourself a nice spot for Behemoth. And in all fairness, that's kind of how it happened. Remember, as we got onto the stage, just looking outside of the crowd and thinking, okay, it's good. It's not quite all there. And as you get to the middle of the set, the tent was heaving. And then towards the end of the set, just because people are kind of thinking, actually, we want to go and watch Behemoth, then fine. It started tapering off at that point. But we were happy just to if people were in there for 5 minutes, we were happy.
Yeah. And post that particular show, how long did it take you to actually come down in terms of the adrenaline and the endorphin rush that you must have had? How long?
A couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks.
So you don't really, you kind of, again, it's one of those things that literally happens in a flash. So it's the next day, it feels like a dream. It feels surreal. It doesn't feel like you've done it at all, but you do know you've done it. Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. It's one of those things that you definitely want to do time and time again if you can. And we ended up, well, obviously applying a fair few times to try and play again. So it's just so happened that once again our efforts have paid off. So we're quite happy with that. Yeah,
let's move on to this year. Obviously, I know you've been bombarding Simon Hall with cheese for the last 2 years in an attempt to get back on stage. So
I know what the man likes.
How has it actually come about? Has it literally been a case of him giving you a slot because you've harassed him so much, or has he genuinely is his taste actually decided to get good this time and he's put you on?
I think it's been probably a number of factors. I mean, when we played Bloodstock the first time, we kind of thought, well, actually, the one thing that I know they want the new Blood stage to be is a springboard for bands to actually try and progress themselves and to do the next thing, so then they can come back. Because otherwise, what's the point in doing it? You perform at a festival and then disappear into nothingness. There's no point.
Yeah.
So we went and said, okay, we'll do an album. Recorded an album, great. Had that released on UKM, wonderful. Can't fault that at all. Then we toured the hell out of it. And then we just carried on playing. We just got to the point where we thought, well, actually, we give this another crack because we've shown that we've made something of it. We played a couple of high-profile gigs. We supported Agrona and Almathrek in Bristol. We played Mammoth Fest. We did a fair few of the shows of that kind of ilk. We just thought, well, actually, no, the time's about right now to show how we've now progressed since we were first on the stage. Because, like you said, we're a very different band now, both in lineup and it's. What people will see is sound to a certain extent as well when we play on Bloodstock.
Yeah. So Teresa, sorry to have cut you out a little bit, but of course,
no, it's all right. No worries.
2016 was slightly before you joined the band, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those that don't know, when did you actually come on board?
It was, I think that it was 2017.
Right.
When basically guys started recording the first album, The Realm of Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I think it was actually January because guys actually asked me to do the guest vocals for the song Immaterium.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it somehow happened that I basically stayed with them and fully joined them as well. Yeah, so.
Great. And Realm of the Fallen obviously came out in 2018 and got a bloody good reception. It's one of, I think I've got 2 artists that I've got vinyl, CD, and a cassette of the same album.
Wow.
You and Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons' last album. So.
Wow. Thank you.
I'm not sure whose cassette is worth less on eBay. Probably Phil Campbell's because he probably made more of them. But...
Well, we've got a yellow one, so
no more. We need something new. But let's go back to the album because seriously, I mean, the reception that it got certainly in the South Wales area was pretty impressive, and your social media suggested that people around the country were picking it up, and there was quite a lot of good reaction. How did you feel as a band that it went for a debut?
I don't think we could really fault how it went for a debut, to be fair. I think it's almost these days where a lot of bands almost go straight down the EP route because it's a safe route. We decided to actually go straight into deep end and go down the album side, and there's a little bit of risk involved in that already because you haven't really tested the water. But given that, I think it did come out pretty well. At the end of the day, we've sold out of CDs, we've sold out of vinyl via UKM. We still got a couple that we've kept back specifically for shows, and we've pretty much out of tapes as well. So for at least from a numbers point of view, yeah, more than happy with that. I think that the one thing that we kind of picked up to learn from this, I guess more than anything else, would be just to try and it's one of the reviews that we had which kind of pointed out the fact that everything sounded really, really good, but it lacked there's something that it lacked, and we kind of agreed looking back at it, which was almost a cohesive identity. Which I actually think that we've definitely remedied that when the new stuff comes out. I mean, me and Teresa have spent a long time just working on the whole conceptual side of things. We didn't really have that before. It was more just an accumulation of songs written by people who are involved in the band, but for what it's worth, that still actually worked out quite well, because sometimes that gives you a better level of diversity you can get rather than just one person writing it.
Yeah. Teresa, anything you want to add on to that?
Well, definitely the new album, I think that it will be quite full of surprises as well, because it's a conceptual album and we kind of trying to more focus on the Welsh mythology and Welsh folk tales. Yeah. That's why basically the album is called Straeon Gwerin, which means exactly the folk tales. So I think that it's quite interesting topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And will you have any guest vocalists from Cwmbran on it this time, or are you moving further away from that field?
I think we'll probably be I think we're keeping the vocals in house this time. Don't get me wrong, can't fault Steve for helping us out, because I he's an excellent lad, but I think for now we need to just make sure that it's our own material as much as possible. Although that said, we are having some guest guitarists.
Yeah. Sure.
Because neither myself or Stu, who's our other guitarist, are shredders in the slightest. But actually, the guitar solos from the first album, they were quite well received, and it's the one thing we kind of miss.
Yeah. So, have you got any plans in terms of when you play the new stuff live with solo, and if neither you or Stu are going to take it on, how are you going to run that?
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and solo, but in a slightly less ridiculous way, I think, because it would take me a long time to get out to the standard of some of the musicians that we got guesting. Put it that way. So if I can just write something which would do the part justice, but not necessarily be anywhere near on the technical level, I will be happy.
Brilliant. So let's come back to this year's Bloodstock. You've drawn the Friday again, I think, haven't you?
We have.
But of course, you can have a Welsh blotto on the Wednesday now.
We can.
Then recover.
And then be remarkably sensible on Thursday. And I think this time we're going to be a lot more sensible and sort out our PR and media stuff a long time in advance. So Thursday is sensible day.
Yeah. So for those of us that have seen you before, we know what to expect to a certain extent, but what surprises, apart from the biggest banner you've ever had, which I believe is...
A banner full stop. It's not as big as some bands have been. I think it's only 3x2 or 3.5 by 2.5, something along those lines. It's not enormous, but it's one that you can use in other venues as well. Because we could have shelled out for a massive one for Bloodstock and then never used it again. But
you could still use it as a duvet, though, I believe. Is that true?
This current one, easily.
Maybe for entire band, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd use the banner again if some of the band used it as a duvet.
what else can we expect? What? I mean, obviously you're not going to divulge all the party plans that you've got, but what have you got? 40-minute set?
I think we're probably looking more along the lines of about half an hour, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's about a half an hour. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're quite early on in the day, and I know that what with set change over times, and Sophie stage band still early on, get around the half-hour mark. So I think that's what we're working towards. There will be new material, categorically.
Right.
There will be at least 2 new songs in the set list.
Yeah.
And with the way the lineup is running this year, with obviously the Thursday being purely New Blood and Sophie, are you happier that you're on the Friday when the main stage is open, or would you have preferred, from a purely selfish point of view, being there on a Thursday where people couldn't go and watch? You'd reduce the options by a third.
It's actually a really valid question, and
You don't have to be honest.
I don't want to come across as ungrateful, but actually, yeah, I think if we could have been on the Thursday, it's captive audience. You know, it's simply the fact that people almost have to go and watch you if they want to go and watch live music. However, to my understanding, I don't think there's day tickets for the Thursday. So, and there's also going to be an awful lot of people who are just going to use that day. Well, there'll be less people turning up, say, for example, on the Wednesday, because you've got to book a bit more time off. The Friday and Saturday, Sunday typically always have a bigger turnout. So on that side, we're not gonna grumble about it. We get to play the Sophie stage. But if we had the choice, would we want to go on the Thursday? Well, I don't know. We wouldn't have turned it down by any means. I think it's kind of a matter of it'll more.
Well, I think that, I think that we will be fine with anything basically, but I think that the Friday for us as a band, it would be incredible experience to actually play on such a huge stage like a Sophie stage. So I think that's both will be absolutely amazing. But for me personally, I think that the Friday I would choose.
It's the Friday the 13th as well. So
yeah, exactly. It's another thing.
there is that. There is that.
How are you feeling about it, Teresa? Because obviously it's a big stage to fill.
Yes, it is. Well, I will be absolutely honest. I never been in. I basically never play on such a huge stage, so I'm actually really nervous. But that's me, before basically every single show, I'm really nervous. But exactly the second I'm on the stage, it's gone. It's basically my alter ego just show up, and then I forget that basically there is some kind of Teresa,
Yeah.
Well, here's an exclusive. It's Teresa's first UK festival. Full stop.
Yeah.
Wow.
That too.
Amazing. That'll be brilliant. So you'll have a cracking time anyway. Even
I will.
playing it, it'll be amazing. So let's think now. So someone who doesn't know you, wandering around the field on the Friday, and we say to them, come into the Sophie stage and see this band, what would the selling points be?
Oh, you go answer this one, Teresa.
Well, the selling point will be probably that we are Welsh Black Metal band, because this year there is not many black metal bands as well, So I think that for the fans of the black metal, there will be good selling point.
Yeah, that's cool. And I don't think there aren't huge numbers of women performing, as far as I can remember from the lineup.
Well, but I wouldn't use that as a selling point, to be honest, because it doesn't matter if I'm female, male, or whatever. This is for me. This is mainly about the music, not about the gender.
No, that's fair. I think that's fair enough. I'm just thinking of some of the others. I mean, if you look at the other bands that you have.
Yeah, I think that there will be Venom Prison and the Svalbard as well.
Yeah, and Vexed as well, who have got a fairly ferocious front lady in Megan. So I think the front ladies that are singing this year, and Ginger, of course, as well. So actually, it's a pretty ferocious lineup. I'll ignore that question. That was a bad question.
There's going to be some kind of photo opportunity, surely, at some point to say angry females of Bloodstock, I think.
So, obviously, it's your first festival, Teresa, but Alan, I know you're a veteran of it for over a decade now. I think 2008, your first one, something like that. Is that about right?
2008. I did did 3 downloads prior to that, and
Yeah.
I think at that point I'd had a bit enough of the walking.
Yeah.
So now I was quite grateful the moment I got introduced to Bloodstock by a friend who just said, "Go to this one. You can walk 5 minutes and you're at the main stage." Cool, I'm down. Let's go.
Yeah. So for someone that had never been, now obviously this year you're stuffed because they've sold out today, haven't they? Certainly the camping. So that's great news. But what are the kind of things that you would say would be the selling points for Bloodstock, apart from obviously the fact you don't have to walk?
Well, the lack of walking does help, don't get me wrong, big selling point. But I think it's more just the overall, it's almost got a lot more of a family atmosphere than some of the larger festivals do, just by nature of the fact that it is that much closer together. Don't get me wrong, it still feels like a festival. It still feels festival sized. But it's more just that almost weird camaraderie you feel when you're around people with similar tastes. It almost feels even more elevated when you're at Bloodstock. There's that, and I guess the other big selling point for me is the one thing which other big festivals just aren't quite anywhere near as hot on the ball with, is the whole supporting the underground side of things. At the end of the day, you've got some fairly underground names being given some substantially higher bill slots, particularly this year. Okay, they had the opportunity to do it because of the whole, you got to pick the UK bands. But if we have a look at Fetal Juice, for example, on the main stage opening on the Friday.
Yeah.
They're still, by all intents and purposes, they're a big underground band, but they're an underground band. And there's plenty of other bands that ilk. And I think it's the one thing that Bloodstock really does so well, is that they actually foster and nurture a lot of the up and coming bands. So yeah, there's a fair few things the festival's got going for it, aside from the walking.
And are you surprised? I mean, I'm not surprised, because when you look at the lineup, then there are obviously ample bands to actually fill it without all the European and American bands, apart from obviously we've got, I think, 1 or 2 still. But obviously we've got Creator and Violence, but they're the 2 that stand out. Are you surprised that they've managed to get such a quality bill in this kind of piecemeal way that they've had to do it, with pullouts almost at the last minute?
Not really. I'm not really that surprised. I think, if anything, they could have done this 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I think there's that many good UK bands. Even just looking at our black metal scene, I'm sure Teresa can pick out a couple of good big UK black metal bands which aren't playing this year. You can make another festival purely out of that. And then that's just one subgenre. You're looking at other subgenres, and there's plenty more names as well. So I wouldn't necessarily say surprised. I think, if anything, they've probably been spoiled for choice.
Yeah, Teresa?
I fully agree with Alan.
Yeah. And what about what you're looking forward to from what you've heard? Apart from obviously the lack of walking, which is the key thing for most of us. What else
for the
are you
dodgy
looking
knees.
forward to? Obviously 5 days camping with this lot is going to be great, but...
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've never been like a big festival in the UK, so just the entire festival for me is very exciting, to see my old friends, see few friends from the bands who are playing, for example, Ascaris,
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a very special atmosphere this year, I think.
Exactly, it will be very special because we basically wasn't able to do anything for like 1.5 years. So I think that everybody will be just super relaxed and excited, and everybody will really enjoy it. So there will be absolutely amazing atmosphere,
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so give your socials a plug. Tell the people that are listening to this when it goes out how they can find Agrona and where they can look at the videos and stuff to get a taste of what they're going to be seeing in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, right. Okay. So we've got a Facebook. So it's facebook.com/Agrona Band. We've got our Instagram, which I do believe our drummer actually maintains. I think he just copies and pastes most of the Facebook stuff, in all fairness. But if you only use Instagram, if you just look for Agrona Band on there, I think it's actually listed as Agrona Cardiff. Mm-hmm. We do have a YouTube channel, but I think that's currently being worked on at the moment, just to get some more content up for the new album. It's primarily the first 2 we use more than anything else. However, just a heads up for anyone interested, we are looking at doing a new merch online store as well, because naturally we've not been able to sell half the current stock that's sitting at the moment downstairs. So we'd quite like to shift it on so we could make producing the next album a little bit cheaper. So if anyone's interested in hoodies, t-shirts, CDs, tapes, LPs, we do have a selection available. Actually, we're bringing out a new t-shirt for Bloodstock as well.
Brilliant. Oh god, that's another one I gotta buy.
Sorry, Paul. We're not really that sorry, but they do look amazing.
Great. I can't wait. No, genuine. That was me being genuine. Believe it or not. So just to finish, you've given us the teasers about the new album. When can we expect it?
Oh, that's the eternal question at the minute. But the intention is to start on the studio by the end of this year. We were due to start late end of last year, but then extra lockdowns basically meant that the producer couldn't work at the studio for God knows how long. Mm-hmm. And we could have had the option of doing it elsewhere and doing it quicker, but actually Timmy, who did our last album, did such a good job with it. We don't really want to move away from him. So we said we'd wait. As such, we're just waiting for his schedule to free up, and then once we've done Bloodstock, we'll then start the recording process. It'll probably take, again, the best part of 4 or 5 months to get done because we do live far apart.
Yeah.
But once that's done, hopefully by this time next year we should have an album out. And it's one that I can, at the very least from my side of things, and I'm sure Teresa's going to agree with this as well, it sounds like it's a real step up, which is a big thing for us.
Absolutely.
Great. Well,
definitely.
Can't wait to hear it, and can't wait to hear the new tracks at Bloodstock. So we'll finish off now by wishing you whatever luck you actually need, because you don't need it. And Heavy Fest will get you in the mood, and then I will no doubt see you in a field in a couple of weeks. So
can't wait.
I can't wait,
guys, and we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website www.therazorsedge.rocks.